The Democracy Spring protest in D.C. yesterday accomplished one of its main goals, and that is demonstrating broad support for radically reforming the way we do campaign finance in this country. And it did that by bringing people together from the right and from the left to demonstrate in D.C., to be willing to be arrested. Another goal that also worked out. We'll have the details for that in just a second. However, it didn't accomplish one of its goals, and that is getting the mainstream media to actually pay attention to this and to recognize that people overwhelmingly want change. And so we'll have those stats for you as well. But first, on the arrests, and we have a follow-up video from Cenk, who was one of the people who was arrested yesterday. It took more than 6 hours for police to arrest the protesters, of which more than 400 were arrested yesterday, and I'm hearing about 100 today. Those who chose to sit in on the Capitol steps, they were taken in zip-tie handcuffs into large buses to be taken away and processed. And to give you an idea of the breadth of people who were willing to be arrested for this movement, you have protest campaign director Kai Newkirk, head of the activist group 99 Rise. We've covered their actions a few times. He was among the arrested. Others included the online news personality Cenk Uygur, criminal justice reform advocate Michael A. Wood Jr., Progressive Change Campaign Committee co-founder Adam Green, and former California Secretary of State candidate Derek Cressman. And we have a quote from Alex Lawson, Social Security Works executive director, about the action yesterday, saying, "What you're seeing right now is a massive change in the conversation around money and politics, and I think that we are at the Capitol making it so visible that so many people are willing to risk arrest. This is something that elected officials cannot be on the wrong side of." But to the extent that they can't be on the wrong side of it, it has to do with how much coverage this actually gets.
Right.
And this is the frustrating part. Because I looked all over the web, and to their credit, some sites covered it to varying degrees. Places like Vice, RT, Huffington Post had a lot of information about it on their websites. So they get credit for that. CNN, Washington Times, MSNBC, and Fox News, they did have stories about it. But that's basically about where it stopped. So while the action dubbed hashtag Democracy Spring garnered over wide coverage on social media, over 136,000 tweets, during daytime and afternoon news segments, CNN did not devote any coverage to the actions on their actual TV side. MSNBC mentioned the protests for approximately 12 seconds, while Fox News mentioned the arrests and discussed the protests for around 17 seconds. So look at Fox News leading the way there, although they probably were not giving a positive spin to it.
It's because they stuttered. That's why they went that.
It took a while. It took a little while longer. Yeah, actually, one of the graphics didn't come up, and so they had to wait a second. MSNBC and Fox News not only provided minimal coverage, but hosts on both networks misrepresented the protests, claiming they were narrowly focused only on voting rights issues, which, for the record, is not narrow. That's really important too. The protests were widely covered by C-SPAN, Al Jazeera, and NPR, and so thank you to The Intercept for doing that media analysis. And so, look, a lot of people got arrested, and many people will hear about it from the coverage that it did get. But it's interesting that if you protest outside of a mosque, or an Islamic community center, they'll cover it for days. If a plane goes missing, well, that shut down for a month. But when people want to rescue American democracy, 12 seconds or zero.
This goes further than rescuing American democracy. It goes to our media and how it's corrupted by the exact same entities that corrupt our politicians. Corporate media is funded by corporate sponsors. That's why it's referred to as corporate media. So do they have any type of incentive or interest in covering a protest that not only calls out these politicians and a corrupt political system, but also calls out the media for their corruption?
Yeah.
Okay? When you have BP or some major corporations, when you have corporations that aren't even trying to sell you something, advertising on these major networks, they're not doing it because they want to improve sales. A lot of these companies don't even have anything to do with selling a product. They want to ensure that these media outlets don't criticize them because you don't want to bite the hand that feeds.
So instead of that advertising money being used to fund investigations, that advertising money is being used to fund non-investigations.
Yeah.
It's being used to squelch any investigative instinct that they might have in their news division.
Yeah.
And we also, before I said, they don't. The reason why this isn't getting covered, the march and the protests to get money out of politics is because when money's in politics, all the people who we want to cover it make more money.
Yeah.
They all make more money. We've heard Les Moonves cheer this on. Even the rise of Donald Trump, which he admitted was bad for our country, but it's good for CBS. So that's why this isn't getting any coverage. We're covering it, of course, and there's a couple of places online covering it. But this would directly affect their bottom line. And like I always say about the hosts at MSNBC, they're all good people, what have you, but it's obvious they haven't said anything that would affect Comcast's bottom line, because as soon as they do, they'll be fired. Like Ed Schultz was fired, and Phil Donahue, and a host of others.
Yeah. Yeah, also, really fast, I want to give credit also to sites like Alternate and Raw Story, who also covered it.
Yeah.
I just sort of expect that they will, so.
But what's the difference between all the media outlets that you listed that did do some coverage of this protest and the media outlets that didn't do any coverage or did a tiny amount of coverage? I mean, Raw Story, NPR, the way that they're funded is very different from the way that MSNBC or CNN is funded, or Fox News.
Look, these big economic interests they've got to start advertising on these blogs if they want to get them in line. And how about this? So we've said many times, CNN obviously has no interest in even asking about reforming campaign finance, since so many of those dollars go into ads. And the fear is that if you get money out of politics, then they won't buy the ads. So here's a solution. So when we get the public financing, every dollar has to be spent on cable news advertising. That way it's a win-win, I guess.
So you know
I don't
what?
actually believe that.
There used to be that thing they call about the metaphorical firewall between the news division and the rest of the money-making operation at news
Like the
companies.
advertising division, yeah.
Right, the advertising, and so they could have their journalistic integrity. Right? Well, that's all gone now, because now the news division has to turn a profit, right? So it's funny, I was watching one of my videos at youtube.com/The Jimmy Dore Show, and I was noticing.
We need a firewall between your on-air personality and your concern for your channel's growth. Sorry.
They literally have a pro-fracking commercial. Have you seen these on YouTube?
Oh,
the pro-fracking commercials that they're running. And I'm like, on my fucking video. People say, well, you're getting money from the fracking people because that commercial's playing on. Yeah, but guess what I'm using that money for? To fight against fracking.
Yeah.
Which is kind of ironic. That's the beauty of how some capitalism is working today.
That's what Hillary says about Wall Street, though.
That's what she says.
That is what she
Except
says.
there's no firewall. So that's the beauty of what we could do here that we can't do anywhere else. Cenk also did a video that talked about the corruption and offshoring, corporations offshoring their money, and Google was one of the companies he talked about. So he does have complete editorial freedom here. That is the big difference.
That's true.
Yes.
Well, thank you for bringing up Cenk, because we actually want to go. We have some video from Cenk about the protests, about what it means to him. So let's roll that.
So you got to come join us, man. This Democracy Spring thing is real. Civil disobedience is real. And I know it's frustrating that a lot of the establishment media didn't cover it. The largest arrest in Capitol history, and they don't think that's newsworthy. That's insane. And part of the problem is, and this is really important, guys, we did it right. And the cops thanked us for being so peaceful and doing civil disobedience right. And they were very good to us. But the problem was, it didn't bleed. That was one of the problems. If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. That is an implicit way the media encourages violence, right? So if you do it the right way, they're like, oh, that's boring. Just an enormous amount of Americans. And remember, the number of people arrested were a small fraction of the overall protests, right? An enormous amount of Americans come in to protest because they're so worried about how bad corruption is in our government. No big deal. But if somebody had gotten a baton over the head and was bleeding, or had pushed a cop, right? They'd be like, oh my God, look at this, the protesters, they're radicals, they're rioting, and then they would have covered it. Positive coverage, you're almost never gonna get. Negative coverage, the mainstream media is more than happy to give you.
And we actually internally at TYT have gotten a little example of that. So everybody got all pissed off about the American Air thing. Well, that they'll cover to some extent. I don't know if it got 16 seconds on Fox News, but he has a good point there, obviously. And yeah, getting 400 people to be arrested, that is pretty amazing. So he's saying it's the largest ever there. I don't know for sure that it is, but it is an absolutely huge number of people. And it's ridiculous that they covered those Tea Party protests for months and months around the clock.
And sometimes they would have 50 people out on the Capitol steps.
Right.
50 people to sit around and listen to Michelle Bachmann misquote the Constitution and confuse it with the Declaration of Independence. And they would cover that without, by the way, pointing that out, what I just pointed out.
Yeah,
Look,
and
look
I mean,
at Cenk. See, and now you see they have all that you see they have all those scaffoldings around the.
Yeah.
And that's
Also-
because the Republicans want the Capitol moved a little bit farther to the wrong side of history.
Well, the thing that I do want to point out is, at this protest, there were a few Tea Party activists present, right?
Yeah,
and
that's true.
and part of the reason why is because this is really a nonpartisan issue. It doesn't matter
Yes.
if you are a radical right person on the radical right or a person on the radical left. Everyone agrees that our representatives should represent us, not
Yeah.
corporate interests.
Not
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton voters.
I think that
They don't think
they
that.
made a big mistake in the PR. They really should have said that this is Democracy Spring brought to you by the Tea Party. I think that there would be a lot more cameras
Maybe.
If this was this many Tea Partiers, you
Yeah.
damn well, it would be covered to
there. No,
Well,
Fox
you
would be
know.
saying, should we impeach Obama
we-
instantly?
this-
Probably.
Maybe they needed Sarah
pretty sure
Palin
about
there to give
Yeah.
a speech about how the money in the politics is corrupting our politics of today and yesterday.
So that's great. That was, by the way, that's the story here. I think that the Tea Party and the left came together over an issue. Again, that's the story. Won't be covered.
No. And even when they do talk about it, they say it's voting rights that they're concerned